A few years ago, there were big headlines across the news platforms. Siklag of the Tanakh had been found. My first response, even before opening the article, was a healthy helping of skepticism. Why? There's nothing more exciting than finding sites or artifacts that relate directly to the Tanakh. But it's been thousands of years. We already have explored quite a few areas, each with attempts to identify them with greater or lesser degrees of certainty. Most of the time, the more significant revelations are accompanied with a degree of modesty. When big bombastic statements hit the headlines, it's usually clickbait. The bigger the headline, the more of a chance they're just trying to get you to click on it. Keep in mind that these digs need to be funded. The head archaeologist running the excavation can usually only bring in enough to start the excavations at best. He has to come up with some significant finds pretty fast if he wants the funds to continue to come in and the excavation to continue to run. Timing is also an important factor. Even when real interesting finds are uncovered, you'll notice that they are often announced at particularly convenient times. Something with a menorah, or from the Hashmonean period, around Hanukkah time, or something relating to Aliyah Regel to the Beis Hamikdash around the time of the Chagim. In fact, every year or so, I see the city of David announce the finding of the same Aliyah Regel path all over again with great excitement. What? They lost it and refound it since last season? No, what they mean is they uncovered a bit more of that same path. Every time, are these things miraculously found right when we're celebrating a relevant Chag? Of course not. Not that it couldn't happen, but it's a game that archaeologists play where they announce irrelevant or somewhat relevant finds when it's convenient for them. In addition, announcing something as significant as the finding of Tsiklag without first putting out an academic article or opening it to peer review as is customary reeks of an attempt at publicity. Could they have found something that's almost undeniable evidence? In theory, perhaps. But again, then they could approach it with a little more modesty. Bombastic statements generally point to attempts to gain attention. Of course, this doesn't mean that we shouldn't check out the facts and weigh the theories being put forth. So I went out there and heard from Sargano, who was running the excavation there at the time. It was a fascinating visit with interesting implications, if his theory is correct. Sargano's Tsiklag is located by a site known as Khirbet el Roi, between Kiryat Gat and Lachish. Until then, most attempts at identifying Tsiklag placed it further south, with one of the leading opinions being by Tel Shara, which is nearby a valley known as Al Sharia, which is Arabic for law, and could perhaps preserve the tradition of David having set the law of splitting the spoils of war with those who remain behind. Khirbet el Roi, on the other hand, is right on the border between the area under Plishti control and that under Yehuda in the southern Shfela. The archaeological finds do seem to show a Plishti presence there, and around the times of Shaul and David, we find a destruction there, including a thick layer of ash, right where it should be chronologically. As opposed to the other contenders, which are generally further south, this site is quite close to Ashkelon and Gat, meaning, on the one hand, David and his men are safer, as they're in the Plishti area and out of Shaul's control. On the other, maybe at first Achish had some doubts regarding David's loyalty, at least until he had proven himself in his eyes. In that case, it would be wise to keep them close by, as they would cross the border into nearby Yehuda territory to plunder the towns there. When he later hears of Shaul's fall, he laments and mentions specifically Gat and Ashkelon, the two Plishti towns right nearby, if this is in fact Ziklag. It sounds good, has interesting implications regarding how Achish felt, if he wanted to keep him close, at least at first, or really trusted him blindly, allowing him to settle further away in the Negev and more. But there is a problem. In Sefer Yoshua, Ziklag is mentioned in Prakim Tet Vav and Yud Tet. In both cases, it places it in the area further south, closer to the Beersheba Valley region, and in the area of Shimon within Yehuda. As such, it would seem that based on those psukim, that they're simply looking in the wrong area altogether. There's one little pasuk that could, however, complicate things a bit more. For that, back to our parak. Shmuel aleph, parak lamed, pasuk yudalet, where we read of the Egyptian slave or servant who David found, and he tells them that the Amalekim had attacked the Negev of Yehuda and Ziklag. This could be understood as indicating that Ziklag itself is not in the Negev of Yehuda. Now, you could read this pasuk a little bit differently as well. Perhaps it could be read that they were all attacked, but only Tsiklag was burnt down, and therefore was mentioned separately. But why wouldn't the others have been burnt down as well? Why specifically Tsiklag? For now, it remains a mystery. David and his men follow this Egyptian Eved's words, and as they chase after Amalek to try to set free their captives, they come to Nachal Basor and decide to split up. This is a very logical place to split, as Nachal Basor is, in a sense, the dividing line between the center and the Negev. South of this riverbed, you have the sands of Sinai that have made their way into the area and are tough to maneuver through. As such, as they advance forward, they wanted as little weight on them as possible, so they leave it behind. But unlike last time, when they went to battle and everyone joined, some were left behind to guard the equipment. If only there had been those who would remain behind to guard the families of Ziklag when they last went out to battle, maybe they wouldn't have been part of this terrible situation to begin with. Instead of simply burying his head in the sand, David quickly learns from what went wrong in the past, and with Hashem's guidance, takes immediate action while simultaneously implementing changes so as not to fall to the same mistakes again.